Lords of the Fallen could refer to one of two games, both of which are published by CI Games. The original launched in 2014, while the one I'm reviewing here is that game's sequel, released in 2023. This is important context, especially if you're getting this as a gift or seeing some suspiciously good pricing in the next few weeks. Just be sure you're getting the game you want. I didn't play the original, but I did decide to try this sequel, which was billed as a dark fantasy RPG, launching on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series and PC on the 13th of October 2023. I would describe Lords of the Fallen as a Masocore title, taking more than a little inspiration from the From Software catalogue. The world of Lords of the Fallen is a fantasy realm, in which humanity once banished a dark god. Said god is trying to break through the seal that holds them, and through a series of unlikely events, a magical lantern that makes the wielder undying turns your character into humanity's last best hope. The early portion of world building is short and sweet, but it gets the job done well in the opening cutscene. Very soon after this, you're put at the character creator, which begins with class selection. The class choice is what you'd expect, with a strong range of starter builds and stat allocations for you to jump into your desired playstyle. You then make your character in a creator that feels like it has an adequate amount of customization, but everything you do make looks a touch more world-weary than perhaps intended. After this, you're released into the world of Axiom and run through the initial tutorial area. As you go through this early section, you are given a lot of information on mechanics and abilities. This isn't particularly challenging, but it's worth noting that these are quickly introduced in a way which seems to indicate that the expected player base is veterans of the Masocore genre. The game's big mechanic is also introduced to you as part of this. This is the Umbral realm, which sees parts of the environment change. The tutorial example is a gate that can be passed through only when you're in this mode. Another is a bridge that is only present in the Umbral. This pale grey and blue world looks a lot like the latter part of a Bloodborne playthrough. I couldn't help but be struck by the environmental similarities to the From Software catalogue. This level and scene design, along with the game's atmosphere, feel at best flattering homages, and at worst, blatant imitations. The font used is a little Soulsy too, and the presentation of the UIs and menus is certainly heading in the same direction. The bulk of the narrative is told using haughty-looking NPCs, who you must talk to multiple times, or via lingering memories that are extracted from stigmas. These spout snippets of context that you won't fully understand until a few bosses later into the game. What I'm circling here is that if you're just put in front of this game, you'd be forgiven for believing that this was a From Software title, particularly based on a lot of visual presentation, which includes things like character modelling, environmental design, and theming. In my opinion, it's perfectly fine to be inspired by what another company are doing, particularly one as successful as From. As long as everything is above board in terms of legalities and copyright, Hexworks can do as they wish. What matters most, or rather, what matters most to me, is how the imitation differentiates itself from the original. In movement at least, you can feel a difference, and it's likely because traversal in this engine feels lighter and more responsive. This is faster, and you are more quickly able to adjust your character, and it feels like you have more reactive controls. Jumping is handled like the earlier Souls games, where you have to be sprinting to do so, and while a few of the puzzles need you to do this, it's not a large number of them. Generally, movement and traversal feel fine. The limitations of what you can do are well defined to make the game and its structure work, and this helps in combat. As a very basic overview, fighting is anchored on the shoulder buttons of your controller, with the right side being for attacks and the left side for blocking or activating ranged attacks. You dodge with the B button or circle, and you use items with the X button or square. That's pretty much your basic kit, and understanding these will see you through most of the regular encounters. Depending on how you choose to build your character, individual battles play out differently, with weapon and gear weight determining how you roll or swing your weapon. As you likely expect with this kind of RPG, stamina recharges over time, and health and mana only recover if you use consumables. You move your character between vestiges and collect vigour from your foes. The Souls formula is alive and well in this game's RPG elements, but there are some key differences in combat. I mentioned above that this game has a lighter feel to it, and I mean that in terms of raw movement, distance, and speed. However, enemy targeting is very sticky. Take this for an example. A very obviously telegraphed melee swing is about to come down, and it seems as though this will land in front of the enemy. But this adjusts beyond what looks natural for the animation, and it can hit you instead. These hits feel cheaper and less predictable than you'd expect, and you find yourself playing this game on a knife's edge, where dodging and parrying at the absolute last second is quite necessary. This leads into one very divisive area about the game, and that's enemy and encounter design. To provide some context, this game includes a lot of melee weapons that have a wide, sweeping attack arc. The majority of these have a horizontal cleave, and that's because enemies often appear in numbers rather than single one-on-one duels. This is clearly a decision made in tandem with how weapons behave, as you can easily swat a lot of weaker enemies away with these wide swings. Lots of high-level spells have AoE or splash effects too, for this same purpose. The part of this that clashes is the environmental aspect of the game's difficulty. Large parts of the game take place in narrow corridors, where you find your weapon bouncing off the walls as you swing. This is very much within the player's control when you're in Axiom, as you have the freedom of movement to back up to any area you've already cleared and pull your foes into more advantageous situations. When you're in the Umbral realm, enemies can constantly spawn around you, and that often has the effect of cutting off your retreat. As a result, corridors quickly become oppressive death traps, and weapons with horde clearing potential are hampered in their swings by the environment. This leads me to the Umbral realm in general. When you die in Axiom, which is the normal world in Lords of the Fallen, you are taken to the Umbral realm. You can manually shift there too, and this is required to solve some puzzles and get past some obstacles. You do get a slight bonus to Vigor Drop when you're in this realm, and in exchange, you are really dead when you die. But the way enemies spawn here is constant and attritional. Attrition is a key part of game design, particularly for anyone that uses this same sort of formula. Moving from one bonfire or one vestige to another is supposed to be a test of patience, endurance, and resource management. The obstacles in the way are designed to be attritional, with success coming in the form of making it to the next vestige before you run out of health and healing items. The Umbral realm really presses hard on the eroding nature of this mechanic. Where Elden Ring, Rolong, and other Masocore games often succeed is because there's an ebb and a flow to gameplay. Stretches of calm, empty are woven into the gameplay to provide figurative and literal respite. Lords of the Fallen's Umbral realm reduces the amount of which can be naturally found in the game. The practical effect of this is that it forces the player to be in a state of hyper-attentiveness all the time. That's to be expected if you're fighting a boss or a named enemy, but there's a reason that you sometimes put your controller down after beating one of these and let out a sigh of relief. You are physically releasing the tension that you've built up and coming down from that state of alert. I don't think this works well as a state that's heavily maintained, and this game relies on that for large chunks of its moment-to-moment gameplay. This is going to be one of those features that causes some serious frustration. If you're wired to always be on edge and ready for anything, then you're really going to like this a lot. If you like the rise and fall roller coaster of this type of game, then you're going to find this very mentally taxing, and it's going to affect how you feel about this game. One interesting mechanic that you'll see here is withered health. Certain enemy attacks don't do damage as such, they just bank potential damage that detonates when they next hit you. The player can recover from withered health by damaging enemies, so there's a real risk-reward element to this. Withered is a state mostly received from umbral shifting or certain enemies that exist in this realm, but it's also how blocking attacks works too. This is very similar to how you could regain health in Bloodborne if you hit your enemy quickly enough after they hit you. In general, combat here does work well. As for normal encounters, you do have that second chance, where dying sends you into the Umbral. If you get a boss down to the last fraction of their health, and then you die, you can then finish them off with a swing or two from this realm and push yourself over the finish line. This did help make boss encounters here less threatening, as this mechanic achieves the effect of giving you a pass on your first death. Boss encounters feel unusually easy as a result, and while I know there's not many different ways you can do Knight on a Horse and make it new and interesting, almost every encounter contains that lingering vestige, pun intended, of having seen it or something familiar before. The final boss for the ending I worked towards, the Radiant ending, was the most underwhelming fight in the entire game, and I really expected either an immense final showpiece or a challenge that rivaled Millennia, and I was left disappointed on both accounts. Lords of the Fallen might have some hiccups, but it also has some strengths, and there's one in particular that I do want to bring up. I really like the way that this game handles boss loot. Defeating bosses lets you get remembrances, and you would traditionally trade a single one of these for a single piece of boss loot. This works, but it means that if you like a boss and you want 2 or 3 items from that boss pool, you still have to acquire the remembrance again. That usually means playing the game multiple times. Here, possessing the remembrance gives you access to the entirety of that boss's pool of gear, and you can purchase these using another form of currency. This currency is limited per playthrough too, so you can't just buy everything from every boss, but it gives players that agency to put together a set based on their preferences without always requiring multiple playthroughs. On the flip side, one part I didn't like was a specific creature that hides itself as loot. This was less like a mimic and more like an anglerfish. The first time I got caught by one of these, I was surprised and genuinely impressed. But what you learn as you keep playing is that there's no discernible difference between these creatures and actual items. The better way to handle this is how countless other games do, put small visual differences on fake loot, such as a chain on the chest or a slightly different shade of colouring. This game in particular was perfectly set up to let you use your lamp to shine on the loot and reveal the enemy. In the end, these became so infuriating that I was put off picking up placed items in this world for a long stretch of the game. What really stands out amidst a mix of up and downs is this game's technical performance. There was a new patch to download almost every day for a week after launch. Before I even finished downloading the game on launch day, there was a string of troubleshooting steps already on the game's Steam feed. My goal was to run this at 60 FPS, and this was achievable with some caveats. This performance gradually got better by the time I reached the first ending, but frame consistency is still a problem, and there are some rendering issues with cutscenes and certain textures. Performance was particularly bad during the first boss fight and in the Upper Calrath area, and this overall experience was quite similar to Gotham Knights, where the 99 percentile lows and frequent stutters and frame drops were the real killer. Graphically, this does look fine. Lords of the Fallen uses the Unreal Engine, and I only have a few forgivable issues with the visuals, like some asset clipping and some of the armor pieces looking slightly worse than the others. I also saw a few funny ragdoll moments throughout my 45-hour first playthrough, but none of this was game-breaking, and I finished the title without this game crashing once. While I'm here, I'll throw a few quality of life tweaks in that I think would be very useful. When upgrading your gear, you just get small images of the ingredients that you need, and sometimes it's difficult to tell what you're missing. I also think vigor drop rates from regular enemies are quite low. Taking down a ruiner or a skin flayer should reward a bit more than it currently does, but boss drops are fine as they are now. Finally, I'd also like to see some options to sort gear in your inventory by categories, such as by stat scaling or damage types, and I couldn't find a way to change it. Lords of the Fallen will find its fans, and for moments while playing this, I was one of them. If you're someone who really likes the Souls-like formula and are genuinely disappointed that From Software's only release in 2023 so far has been Armored Core 6, this has a very good chance of scratching that metaphorical itch. It might even be enough to tide you over until the promised Elden Ring DLC. In a very practical sense, this game checks a lot of the same boxes, and will appeal to a lot of the same fans as the usual Souls game. But right now, this has some quirks that make this very frustrating, in a way that's beyond the normal level expected for a Masocore experience.